Yo, welcome back to HRT. Hope your week was awesome. Today, I've brought my buddy Clara on to help me talk about the safety struggles of being trans and bring some awareness to it. Like you guys aren't aware how dangerous it can be to be yourselves. But Clara has been following the pod for a while, and we've talked a bit in the past. He's actually the reason I had on Aiden and Taylor. So thank you to Clara for that. I appreciate him. And thank you guys for all the love in the last episode with Ulrich. I knew I knew you guys would love that one. Please keep commenting, liking, subscribing, so that I can continue to put out videos for y'all. And like I said last week, and I'm going to say it every week, if you want to be a guest, you can find a survey in my link tree, which will be in the description below, and in my Instagram and TikTok bios. Just a few brief questions, so make sure you check that out if you want to be on HRT. And for the love of fuck, if you don't follow me on Instagram and TikTok at HRT Podcast, then honestly, you're fake as fuck and you're transphobic. I'm just kidding. But please follow me. I would really appreciate it. I never wanted to be someone who cares about follows and likes and shit, but I need to do that in order to I need to have that so that I can put out quality content for you guys. So just help me out. Same goes for Patreon. Please help. Merch ain't cheap. Thank you. Lastly, join my Discord. Discord's free, so you literally don't have an excuse. There's so many people, over 100 people in there that want to be your friend and help you through your transition. So do it or you're transphobic. That's my excuse for everything. And that is about it. Let's go talk to Clara. Appreciate you guys. Bye. I do want to start off by asking you where you are from, because I
Sure.
don't remember.
So I grew up in Connecticut in a commuter town to New York City, like 45 minutes outside the suburbs. And I was in Connecticut up until I was 18. I went to college in Massachusetts at Mount Holyoke and spent 10 years in Philadelphia. But I just moved to Madison, Wisconsin, the capital, like 9 months ago. So a whole new adventure.
Slay. How long did you say you were in Connecticut for? Before you moved?
Like up until I was about 18, once I went to college. So yeah.
How was Connecticut with, trans stuff?
Yeah, Connecticut's an interesting state because it's kind of small. You can only drive like 2 hours through at max. I did live in a little bit more of a conservative town called Greenwich. There's a lot of like, because it's so close to New York, a lot of like finance bros and Wall Street people are like, oh, this is a pretty commute. I'll just take the train in.
Yeah.
So I would say it was kind of a mix. But for the whole, like Connecticut tends to be blue. Maybe I experienced like a little bit of like AIM LGBT bullying in middle school kind of thing. Like, I
Yeah.
think you're a lesbian or whatever. But like other than that, I never had any like serious threats of like harm or anything. Just maybe like some of my peers.
Nice. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
to Connecticut a couple times. You were. Connecticut is just a state over from me, so
hmm
it's much like New York. It's not horrible. But how's Wisconsin with it?
Yeah. So I still kind of feel like a tourist here, getting to know everyone. But yeah, I do feel like I have a unique experience because I am in one of the more blue parts, versus like Milwaukee is like the big city here. I'm an hour and a half from that. But Madison is like 250,000 people, but it's where the state university is. This year they accepted like 50,000 undergrads. I think with staff, faculty, master students, there's like 78,000 people just associated with the university. So I think due to the fact that there is a little bit more of a larger concentration of people, Madison tends to be a bit more liberal, but it's certainly not uncommon. I'll walk downtown, you see like the state capitol, which is a beautiful dome, and there's, people protesting all different kinds of things, whether it's like anti-LGBT, et cetera. So, but there was yesterday, they just passed a ban on gender affirming care for minors and high school students not being able to play on the sport, like on the sports team that aligns with their gender identity. I know a lot of people were downtown yesterday, trying to combat that and like speak their piece. So
Mm.
I don't know. We'll see. Wisconsin's in an interesting place. a couple months ago it flipped to have a liberal Supreme Court for the first time in 15 years. So I think we're like on the precipice of like really big change happening. So we'll see.
Well, damn. The sports thing, was that at like where you are or like just in a random school in Wisconsin?
I think it's a statewide.
Okay.
Yeah,
Damn. That sucks.
I know.
Yeah, and that's in like what, like high schools, middle schools, or like colleges and stuff too.
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak, so I want to pull up an article real
You're
quick.
good.
Um, yeah, Wisconsin, CBS News, Minnesota. Wisconsin Assembly approves transgender sports restrictions and gender affirming surgery ban. So yeah, I think it's just
Shit.
statewide for, yeah, is what
Well,
it is.
fuck. And minors can't medically transition, you said too, in Wisconsin?
I think it's specifically uh, surgery.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Well,
So
damn. That's
every
a.
state has different minor ages anyway, so that thing can really vary. It's kind of odd.
I don't. I don't even know what it is in New York. I think with parents' consent, you can in New York. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Um, but I would like to know: are you on testosterone, my friend?
Yeah, I am on testosterone. Um,
Slacking. Or do you do injections?
so currently I do injections. I started on gel in January of 2022. And I wanted to do low dose. So I had been on low dose gel, and then I started having some hair thinning, and I spoke with my dermatologist, and he thought that maybe the way that your body is actually physically absorbing the testosterone might impact how much DHT you have. I don't know if you're familiar with DHT, dihydrotestosterone. So balding, there's like balding is like multifactorial, and that there are multiple reasons like why one might start to bald. But
Mhm.
one of the main causes is this substance called dihydrotestosterone, which increases if you have more testosterone in your body. It's like you have more T, now you have more DHT. So you can do something called you can go on a DHT blocker, finasteride.
Mm.
But anyway, so he was thinking like, oh, maybe because of the gel, like a dermatological application, I might be producing more DHT. So he was like, I thought he thought it would be like interesting to see if like the shot prevented any of the hair thinning, to see if that was going to create less DHT in my body. So I swapped. I haven't had any more hair thinning since I swapped the shot into finasteride, the DHT blocker.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be like 2 years in January.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Well, actually, isn't that like a thing? Like, even in cis men, if like cis men go bald, doesn't that mean they have more testosterone or something? Isn't that like a thing?
Sure. So yeah, the science would be exactly the same in terms of like T creating DHT and having more DHT, meaning that you're more likely to go bald. But it is not like definite in that, like, if you did a survey with like all of these men who are balding and had testosterone, it wouldn't definitely be like the man with the most testosterone is 100% going to be bald. Like, it's not one for one, but it's like the man with the most testosterone probably has the most DHT and probably
Yeah.
is very likely to go bald. But it's just like there's so many, I guess, like genetic factors
Hmm.
that go into it. Yeah.
That's my biggest fear. I think with testosterone, my hair is all that I have. I'm so
Yeah,
scared of that. You have no idea.
for sure.
That's crazy though. That so the gel was the cause of
Mhm.
that. Wow.
I mean, I didn't actually like go through a scientific study, but it definitely helped for me swapping. So I wouldn't say that my hair like came back, but I haven't had any like major issues that I've noticed like since. So you know what, it's working for me. So
Now, how long were you on the gel for?
8 months.
8 months. What was the gel like? Did you like it?
There were pros and cons. I mean, from like an emotional standpoint, it was nice in terms of like it's just not as jarring as to give yourself a shot, right?
Yeah.
So from that point, it was nice. I will say it was interesting. So I was supposed to put mine on like my shoulders and like kind of like behind the shoulder. I was told versus sub Q where you literally put it in your fat, which is like what I do now. It's like I was told the gel should go on not fatty areas, so that's why I suggest the shoulders. And
Mm.
where I put the gel on, I swear there's a little bit more hair there. It was like hair growth gel. um,
That's
but
funny.
the other thing about the gel was, I will say, I didn't notice this until I went back on shots, but I
Mhm.
basically spent 8 months like spending so much time away from my wife because I was always so nervous about transferring it or the dogs. And I was like, oh my God, I'm out of the practice of like hugging you or like embracing you because we were so stressed about it all the time. So in some ways, it kind of took a toll that way that I didn't like
Mm.
realize subconsciously.
Yeah, I used to think that with the gel, you couldn't like touch your girlfriend or you turn her into a man or something. I thought it's only like for 15 minutes though, like until it dries or something, right?
Yeah, it seems like so mixed message. And, you know, my wife's actually a scientist. And so we were looking through some of the clinical trials and the paperwork associated with the testosterone when you bring it home from the drugstore. And, you know, some of the examples are like, we tested the gel by having two adults put it on their stomachs, having them separate for 15 minutes, then having their stomachs touch and seeing what happened. Like all this like weird shit. And you're just like, and this was a study of like 15 people. And you're just like, so
Damn.
I don't know. We were just cautious for sure. It could have been overkill, but yeah.
Mm. Now, with the gel, from compared to injections, since you've done both now, like, did you notice when you started injections, like physical changes happened quicker
Yeah,
or
I
anything?
I did, and I did so on the gel. Excuse me. I was on low dose, so my understanding for how mine was administered was like 4 pumps was like a full dose. I only did half, and I've only been on like doing 0.25, like 50 milligrams or whatever. So I've been on low dose the whole time on both, and even though they're supposed to be like equivalent gel and shots, like the same amount, I
Mm.
still was having faster changes on the shots for sure. And it wasn't just reflected in what I'm seeing in the mirror. Like when I look at my blood work, my testosterone levels definitely have increased on the shots. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, when you were on the gel, was it like did you experience the same like mood swings and stuff that all of us tend to get? Or no?
Um, Mood swings. So another reason that I thought about doing the gel at first was there was a theory that like with the gel you're having a little bit every day, so the potential for mood swings is less, and that like you're getting a little bit every day, so there's not this like drop off. And so
Right.
I wouldn't say that I felt like I had mood swings on the gel. I mean, I can just say from being on no testosterone to then being on testosterone gel, I definitely felt like a little bit different in my emotions, right? The stereotype, like you're less likely to cry, like those sorts of things.
Mm.
But I will say with the shots, I do notice a little bit of a dip. I would say I take a shot weekly, so like day 6, right before the shot is due. Um, that's I'm more likely to like shed a tear. You know, like if there's like a commercial on or like a movie, that's like the only. And then it's like, oh, tomorrow must be shot day.
Yeah, right. That's not funny. So now you definitely feel the mood swings and everything with the injections more.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, it's just a little bit of a dip, like maybe a little bit more emotional or like emotionally unregulated the day before, but it hasn't been something that I've been like concerned about or something. So,
Mm.
it's like, okay, I know this about myself. I don't know. Kind of think of it like when I used to get my period and I'd be like, okay, I'm PMSing right now. Or, it's just like I have some information about what's going on and it's only one day. So I'll just,
Mm.
live with it and move on.
Got you. Now you switched to injections because of hair loss, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was the main. I was like,
Yeah. Was that like your only did you was it your choice to start on the gel because you wanted a lower
yeah,
dose?
it was my choice to start on the gel. Yeah,
Interesting. Cool. Um how long in total have you been on tea? I forget.
yeah, no worries. I started in January 2022, something like a little bit over 19 months.
Cool. Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Um now how was switching to injections? Did you have like shot anxiety or anything?
Yeah, I was definitely nervous about it. I had a really good like primary care provider who was actually a trans woman who really took the time to meet with me and my wife and like practice and like go over how to do it. And yeah, I never like loved needles, but I just sort of was like, I don't know. I decided that my needle phobia was worth overcoming versus like my fear of losing hair. So I
Right.
was like, I'm gonna do this. Um, so in the beginning, yeah, like I would have my wife like sit with me or like talk me through it. And then at one point, due to like work stuff, we were separate for a couple weeks. So then I would just like FaceTime her in. And then
Aw.
now I just like totally do it on my own. I am doing sub Q, so it's the smaller needle, so it's like less intimidating.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say I'm like pretty cool about it up until the last part where you're like, I've changed the needle, I've drawn it up, and then you're just like, this is the worst part. But
Mhm.
yeah, at this point, it's just kind of a means to an end, and then it's done. Yeah,
Right. It's that for me, it's that 1 second right before you're about to do it. I'm like completely fine, like drawing it up and like getting there. I mean, like it feels like a chore, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this right now. But then, like, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And then it's like, oh, that means I have to stab myself now. Okay. But I usually have
absolutely.
on music and stuff to help me get through it. But where do you do it? Do you do it in your stomach?
Yeah, I do it in my stomach. Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
I got to get on the sub Q grind. I have to, because I'm tired of this. I am
It
shit.
honestly, I mean, certainly you could like message your doctor, but I mean, I don't think you're going to get like different syringes. I don't think you're going to get a different vial of testosterone. You probably literally just need to buy a different needle size, like a different syringe, like whatever it is. Yeah, like needle size, and then that's it. You just administer it differently. Like that's all your doctor's going to tell you to do. So, yeah.
I never thought of that. Why was I thinking that it's like a that it's like a completely different thing? You're so right. It's literally just the needle. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, I gotta get on that because I think that if I was on sub, but the thing is, that's the pros and cons list of IM and sub Q. I feel like is IM is better in the sense of I only have to do it every 2 weeks, where you do it probably weekly, right?
I do. I'm not sure if there are people out there who have looked into every two. Like, I don't know about 2 weeks. Like, if you can take a larger dose on sub Q, I have no idea about that. But you could certainly ask your doctor. If they say yes, you could try a large amount sub Q. I don't know, take pictures of yourself, whatever, something for a month, and then if you like it, stick with it. If you don't, go back.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I don't know if I would hate it or like it more because I'd have to do it more often. Because I don't, shot day is to me, it just feels like a chore sometimes. So I don't know if I would hate it more that I had to do it every week now, or if I would like it more because it didn't hurt as much.
Is it really about the actual pain? Because sometimes for me, it's about literally seeing the needle, not even that it's going to hurt. So I don't know if you're just like
Yeah.
the needle size or if it's the actual physical pain you're experiencing.
It's just that one quick pinch sometimes. And it's weird because every shot is different. Like, I think that's my problem with it. Like, I never know what to expect. Sometimes I bleed tremendously. Sometimes there's no
Mm.
blood at all. Sometimes there's a little pinch. Sometimes it feels like nothing. And I think, like, that aspect of it makes me mad that I never know what's going to happen.
In terms of bleeding, like I've gone to acupuncture for years, but I still felt like it was different to like administer a shot yourself, but because like I
Yeah.
wouldn't look. But my acupuncturist had told me that you're more likely to bleed with needles if you're more dehydrated. So like try to drink a lot of water that day.
Yeah. See, that's smart because I don't
Mm-hmm.
drink water enough. I have maybe like 3 sips a day. It's awful. I don't take care
Okay.
of myself.
Mark your note on the calendar the day before your shot day, so hopefully less bleeding.
You're smart. You seem like you have
Mm.
your life together, and I'm just out here raw dogging it. um, but you just got top surgery, didn't you?
Yeah, I did 4 weeks ago
Congratulations!
today.
Hell yeah, bro! Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Where did you go for it?
Sure. So I went to the University of Wisconsin, where I live. I actually heard about this place before I even moved out here from some other people in the Midwest. There's a woman named Dr. Catherine Gast who only does gender affirming surgeries. She's not general plastics. She did her training, her residency in the Netherlands. I don't know if you're familiar, but the Netherlands are like really big on trans healthcare. They actually are where puberty blockers started, right? The first place to do that.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, oh, she knows her stuff. Like she's trained with like
Yeah.
lead people. When I went in for I will tell you, it was a long wait list. Like I called before we moved. I had 10 months just to get the consult. Then I had 6 months from the consult to the actual surgery date. But she told me that she had done double incision over 600 times and had a 3% revision rate. And I was like, well, that's all I need to know. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Honestly,
So,
that's all I need to hear. Wow,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
So you got a double incision. How was your like overall experience with it?
Yeah,
With
I would say it was really good. It just was generally nerve-wracking. I typically like faint during blood draws and stuff, and I just
Mhm.
I just get nervous around medical stuff. I've gotten through the shot phobia, but generally nervous about medical stuff. So yeah, but everybody was like super nice. I really tried to follow all the instructions, like wearing a compression vest for 30 days. Today's my last day, thank God.
Mm.
And so I got my drains out 2 days early because I didn't have a lot of fluid, so that was nice.
Oh, cool.
I never even had to use any of like the prescription pain drugs. I was alternating Tylenol and Advil. I didn't have major pain. She did use a special nerve block. I haven't heard of any other surgeons using nerve blocks that lasted like over 72 hours. I had to leave the hospital with a special wristband that says like you've had the Exparel shot. She was
Oh
joking it was like a
shit.
party wristband because I guess you're not allowed to take other stuff, but highly
Uh-huh.
recommend the nerve block.
Wow.
So
I think I was
yeah,
on
I mean,
codeine. I was taking codeine for my top surgery. I was in a
okay,
lot of pain. It was that ride
damn.
home. That
Mm.
ride home, because I did it in the city. It was like an hour drive, but all the potholes and shit that my mom was hitting on the ride home, it's so weird because I think back to that ride and during, I was like, this is the longest car ride of my life. But looking back on it, I swear to God, I was only in the car for like 5 minutes. Like, I was so like fucked up from the anesthesia. Did you, when you woke up, did you like know where you were or anything?
Yeah. I would say it was funny because I woke up in the recovery room and I was clearly like I was mid conversation with probably what was a nurse at the time, but I have no idea what we were talking about. But I was like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm in a conversation with somebody. But I was cognizant enough to know that like, okay, I'm in the recovery room and I can see a clock on the wall.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, the most nerve wracking part was they actually had me walk myself with the OR nurse like into the operating room and get on the table, and it's like all these bright lights, all these people. All
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself was like, don't look at any of the equipment. Like I was like, if I see a
Uh-huh.
scalpel, I'm gonna freak the fuck out. I was just like
No,
head down
dead
at the
ass.
table. Yeah.
Dead ass. Dude, I forgot about that. I remember I walked in and sat on my operating table as well. Do you remember when like going to sleep or no?
I remember I like got on the table. They were like strapping in my legs, which was not something I expected because I was like,
Oh
"Oh
shit.
God, this sounds like
That's
I
kind
don't
of
even know like a
scary.
straight jacket." And all of a sudden, like my surgeon, she was trying to ask me about my legal career, and I was chatting about it. And then all of a sudden, I don't remember anything else. That's it.
Mm,
Yeah, all of a
that's
sudden, I
kind of what
just was
happened to
like,
me.
"Yeah."
Did they put the thing over your face or did you get like anesthesia through like an injection thingy or something?
Yeah, the anesthesiologist we spoke with earlier, like before I went in the operating room, and he said his goal was for it to just come through the bag, and that I would have a mask, but that I shouldn't remember it, that it should come on and off before I'm conscious again, and that's exactly what happened.
Mm, I wonder if they did that to me. That's crazy.
Was your throat sore after? Because that would tell you.
No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember they just put an IV in my arm and they were talking to me and I just knocked the hell out. Best sleep I've ever gotten. And then I woke up. This is such an embarrassing story. I remember waking up on the table and they were like, Cody, let's just like, we have to sit you up really quick. We have to like put your pants on and stuff. And I was like, those are my favorite pants. I love those pants. And everyone was like, okay. and then, and then like, I know that I was already like wrapped up or something, but they had to like fix it or something. I don't fucking know. And they were like, we just have to fix this really quick. And I looked down and in my head, I saw my chest. There was no blood, there was no bruising. Like it was just a perfect like cis male chest in my head. And like I went into like when I woke up again in the recovery room or something, I was like, Mom, I saw my chest. It's beautiful. And she was like, "No, you didn't." It's fucking stupid. Definitely just saw all that in my head.
That's so funny. Why
Yeah, it was
not?
fucked up. Why not? Why not? But when did you come out as trans? I have not asked
Sure.
that
Yeah. I came out in November of 2020.
yet.
So I spent the first year really doing more of a social transition and like really thinking it through. So it was only about a year in that I decided to start on tea. Um, yeah,
Okay, cool. Nice.
I can give you a little bit of my process into how I figured it
Yeah.
out, or yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Yeah. Go ahead.
um, sure. So in some ways, have you ever heard of this concept called trans time? It's kind of
Trans
theoretical.
time. No,
Yeah.
I haven't.
It's almost like it's like it doesn't feel like time, like in terms of your trans identity is one straight line where you go from like point A to point B, because like everything in our culture and society is telling us like, no, this isn't you, this isn't real. So you're always
Yeah.
like double checking, like I don't know, like yeah, like double, I don't know, double checking is the right word, but like you're always like thinking it over and you're like, is this really me, right? I mean, I guess for some people maybe they're like, I definitely knew. And so for me it was like adding up all these little things over time that when I like put it all together and I was like, oh my God, this makes so much more sense now. So yeah, I mean like the earliest memory I have is like being 5 on the playground in elementary school and feeling like I didn't fit in with the girls, like I didn't want to play house. But then like the boys didn't want to play with me because I had cooties because I was a girl. And I was like, I really wish I was a boy. Like I was like, this sucks. Right.
The boys won't play
Um,
with me.
I know. So yeah, I just really felt a little ostracized, like growing up, like not fitting in. And so it was really like in college, I took a gender studies course, and that was like the first time I'd ever heard of like transgender. And I went to a women's college, and there were a couple trans men on my campus. And I remember just being like fascinated by them, right? I was like, I wanted to be their best friends. They were like upperclassmen, I had no interest, but I was like, I want to know everything about this, but I don't want to be
Literally.
invasive. Like, um, so it was at one point I had like an ex confront me in college, and she kind of announced like, okay, but like if you decide that's you, like that's not for me. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, guess that's not me. It's just like gonna keep pushing that down.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
so it's like years go by. I listen to a podcast, and I like hear some trans guy talk, and then I'd be like, oh wow. And then he'd be talking about how like now he feels like he blends in. He's just some like short bald guy, and I was like, I don't know that I want to do that. Like that doesn't sound fun. Because I was out as like a lesbian, or as a lesbian was always too feminine. So I was out as like a gay from like 13 to 29. So I did spend like a long time, yeah,
Mm,
out in a different way.
yeah.
So it wasn't until the pandemic, right? So it was like November 2020. We were deep into like COVID and like isolating. We still didn't know how the election was going to go yet, if Biden was going to win or if Trump was going to be reelected, which felt very stressful. And then I had
Mm.
had like a really difficult time with like my shoulder, like shoulder pain and some like numbness and tingling in my hands. And I had to take like some time off from law school, and I wasn't doing sports. And so it was almost like I felt like I was like losing my whole identity. Like I was like, I'm not doing sports. I'm not doing school. What's happening with my career? Like, am I going to have to go on disability? Like, everything's turned out a lot better now. Warning. Um, but I kind of had this like existential crisis moment where I was like, why is this stressing me out so much? Like, can't I just be like, I need some time off and that's okay? And I came to this conclusion that like I spent so much of my life trying to tick these boxes that would be like perfectionist, like doing all these accomplishments because I felt like I wasn't lovable because I had like this thing about me that just always seemed unacceptable, which was just like my transness and my like masculinity, but I just didn't have any like concept of that. And so, yeah, on this like, yeah, I just like kind of was on this dog walk and was like kind of just going through everything in my head. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm not a little girl. That's the whole thing. Like, I never was a girl. Like, I've done all these things like over time, like be an NCAA athlete, go to law school because I wanted to be like, look, I'm lovable. I do all these things that people like on paper. So,
Mm.
yeah, it was just like a really big reflection during the pandemic.
Wow. A lot of my guests recently have are people that came out during the pandemic or realized they were trans during the pandemic, which I think is really interesting. And I think it's a good thing. I've seen some transphobic people on the internet say that like it became like a trend or something. But like, no, I think everybody just had time to like actually sit with themselves and not listen to the outside world for once and realize that they were trans. And there's a lot more trans people in the world than you think, guys. God.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even if you say that like trans people are like 2% of the population, I think globally the country of Russia is like 1.8% of like the world's population. So it's like
Oh
as
my
many people as
God.
Russia could potentially be trans. Like that's a lot of people.
That is a lot of fucking people. Jesus Christ. Um, Now, you said there was a bunch of things from your childhood that you can like think back to when you were
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that makes sense." Which is funny because we have a segment later, before we go, that I got the idea from somebody in the Discord. His name is Eli, and we're gonna read a bunch of Discord things from people who like their stories about how they should have known they were trans but didn't at a young age. So do you like relating to that? Do you think you had gender dysphoria before you knew you were trans but didn't know it was gender dysphoria? I know.
Yes, absolutely. I have some comments too to your first part, but I definitely do. I think about in high school, I went to 10th through 12th grade. I went to school called the Harvey School in Katona, New York, in Westchester, and we had a dress code. You had to wear a collared shirt. Actually, it's funny I'm wearing this today because I was always trying to get around the dress code, and like I really didn't like a women's collared polo where like you
Mm,
could see like more of the outline of the breast, right? I was always going for more like boxier cuts. And at that school in particular, rugby was really popular. At that time, there was only a men's team. Now there's a women's team, which is great. But so somehow it was still like socially acceptable to wear like a preppy rugby shirt. Like I'm doing the collar, but then I didn't quite have like the women's fit. And I always was so particular about shirts. And so I kind of just had this thing where it was like, oh, I'm just really picky. You know what I mean? Like I'm just really particular. It was 100% gender dysphoria, but I just had no clue. And even as I got older and the internet shopping became more popular, I never wanted to order clothes online. And I think it's because I was like, oh, I need to see how it fits, AKA I don't want to see boobs at all. Yeah, so definitely.
So, do you think now that you've gotten top surgery, a good amount of your gender dysphoria has been better?
It still feels like so fresh because like it's only 4 weeks and I've still been wearing this compression vest, right? I had to wear it
Mm.
for 4 weeks. Today's last day. So it's still like there's something still there. But I'm so excited. This is like one of the first days that I've actually worn like a pullover. Like I've just been doing button down, because it's like can't lift your arms up and
Mhm.
all that. So I'm so
Right.
excited to see how all my clothes fit, etc. So yeah,
Have you
I think we're getting there.
have you put on a shirt yet without anything underneath?
I haven't.
Oh
No.
my god, bro. Oh, it's gonna be the best moment of your life. I remember that. It felt so fucking good. I remember like thinking that like the best moment was gonna be when I took my shirt off and like all the bruising was gone and you could barely notice that I had surgery. I thought that was gonna be my moment. But my moment where I was so just filled with fucking joy after my top surgery was the first time I put on a shirt and just like feeling nothing there. Oh, bliss. Bliss.
That's awesome.
um Now back to your, coming out story. Like, do you
Mm.
have how was that for you? Do you have like a supportive family or
Yeah,
anything?
I would say, I mean, the number one like biggest supporter for sure is like my wife. Right? I think I talked earlier about how like I had an ex who was unsupportive. It's funny because like some years later, this kind of came up again, even though I still didn't address it. Like towards the end of that relationship, maybe 2014, and she was like, if you did decide that was you, it would be okay. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know that you really think that. So like having this like really supportive partner, like even on our first dates, like my wife always suspected I was trans. So I always had, okay, maybe not this much of a goatee, but I always had a little bit of facial hair. And I probably like when I went to start T, I met with a gynecologist at Penn Medicine, and she was like, "You probably have PCOS." I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's I think it's called polycystic ovary syndrome. It can be a reason why like people assigned female birth might have some facial hair, essentially.
Gotcha.
And so I guess on our first date, this was like the shame of my life as an adult, right? Like always brought the tweezers, right? Like you're going on a trip, maybe you're like, I have to have my toothbrush and my medication, and I was like, I have to have the tweezers, right? And so on my first date with my wife, I guess I hadn't gotten everything, and so she was like, "Oh, I think this person is on testosterone," right? Like, and then like I never brought it up, and then I guess she was like, "I guess this person is not on
Oh
testosterone."
my
Um,
god.
but like, we'd like watch a documentary about trans people, and she'd be like, "If you have anything to tell me, like just so you know, like I keep it supportive." So, no, like my wife has definitely been like certainly like my rock about it, and like my family like really loves my wife and really respects her, and honestly like having her be so supportive, I almost felt like they were like, oh, we have to take this seriously, this isn't just like a phase. Like we're like yeah, so it's like nice to have that person like vouching or like validating or even like modeling for the rest of the family, like intentionally using different pronouns like in a sentence in front of people.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of credit to my wife. I think in the beginning of my family, it was a little bit rocky. My mom's brother's gay, so my uncle. So it certainly has always been great to have like another LGBT member. But it's still a little bit different, and as opposed to coming out as like about your sexuality, where you're just like, hey, I'm giving you this piece of information, which always feels awkward. You're like, oh, I'm sexually attracted to like this type of person, right? But now it's like I'm asking you to do something differently. I'm like, I might be asking you to be calling me by a different name, like asking you to use different pronouns, and that actually requires more work. So
True.
yeah, I think in the beginning there was some adjustment. I think for my dad, it's been a little tough, but I think we're improving over time. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but I'm not being like disowned by my family or anything like that.
Good. Always love to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool though that you have your wife now. When you and your wife started dating, I guess you weren't trans yet.
No, I had no idea. This was in 2015, so in November we will have been together for like 8 years.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Thanks. And yeah. So I think I just thought I was gay then because men are gay. It's like, yeah.
Dude, I did the exact same thing. Before I was trans, I don't think I ever said the L word. Mm-mm. I was so uncomfortable with it. I was like, nope, I'm gay. Like that was it.
I don't know
I
if I
love
thought
that.
of that phrase like lipstick lesbian, right? Like I'm like, well, I'm not wearing lipstick, like.
Oh, actually, and you mentioned changing your name. I wanted to talk to you about that because
Mhm.
you did not change your name, and I think that's so cool, and I'm so jealous because I think only certain people can rock that, like you and Sasha Allen, Dylan Mulvaney. Like it's like you make the name Clara masculine. Sasha makes the name Sasha masculine. Like I want to do that, and I wish I could have. But was
Mhm.
there a reason why you didn't?
Yeah, I guess, and that was one of the things, like, in terms of this concept of trans time and being like, am I really trans, and going back and forth a lot. Originally, like, kind of what you heard in popular media was like, you feel like, a boy trapped in a girl's body, or like, you want to totally erase your prior identity. And I was just like, I don't know that I want to totally erase my prior identity, right? So I was like, maybe I'm not trans, just because I was like misinformed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it all goes back to I'm named after my great grandmother. My middle name is Belle, so Clara Belle. And in kindergarten, Disney's Beauty and the Beast came out, and that was very popular. And there's Princess Belle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh wow, I am not Princess Belle. I do not want to be Belle for Halloween. Nobody talks to me about Belle." And so all of a sudden, I was just like, "We are getting rid of Belle," because my dad would call me Clara Belle or CB. So like at
Mm.
6, I was like, "I'm just Clara. I'm not Clara Belle." And I had no idea what reclaiming one's name was at that time. I didn't learn later
Mhm.
till like gender studies class at Mount Holyoke. So, yeah, so somehow, I don't know, that's just like kind of how I survived. That I created this like separation in my mind of like just Clara and Clarabelle. And so my long-term goal is to eliminate my middle name. I think I'm going to change it to Clara Alexander. But yeah,
Sick.
so the cultural thing as a kid was like something I wanted to differentiate. I also like the idea of being out, right? Like I would always be noticeable, right? It wouldn't just be like, oh, now I'm another, Tom, Joe, Dick, Harry, whatever. I've heard stories of people transitioning and then men saying things that are like terribly sexist or transphobic or whatever because they think they're in a safe space. And I'm like, I don't even want to open myself up to those like confrontational
Oh
conversations.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's been funny like coming out on social media and occasionally I'll have like a couple of people I went to elementary school with or like I'm so having a great time like watching your journey. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be like that one point of reference for people to be like, I do know a transgender person. That kid Clara from, Costco School. like, um, so yeah.
So it was like kind of, I guess, like a tactic for you to not change your name so that you could, in a way, not expose yourself to transphobia, in a way, I guess.
I think so. And in some way almost actively combat transphobia. And because I feel like part of it is trying to like erase or say that trans people aren't real. And so, it's
Right.
definitely, if you meet somebody with a goatee named Clara, you might be like, wait, what? Like, you have to think about it. You can't just like go down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really dope. Did it make your transition any harder though? Because typically Clara is associated with like a female name, but did it like cause anyone to misgender you or anything? Did it make it
I,
harder?
yeah, I mean, I guess maybe harder feels relative because it's not like so hard of a burden that like I'm not willing to do it. But like,
Mm.
I definitely think, I like even my uncle talks about, there was his family friend growing up in childhood, Clara Doman, who, he's just used to using Clara in a certain way and like it would be easier. And I'm like,
Mm.
I love you, uncle, but like it's not about what's easy for you, right? Like, I do think that it probably leads people to maybe be more prone to error. And like I do like on my resume, like in my legal career, like I make sure to have like my pronouns right underneath, like
Mm.
to make sure people know. So yes, it does lead to error, but at the same time I feel like it almost opens up opportunities for conversations, like even with like literally the dental hygienist, right? Like it just like it came up at some point, so it kind of
Sure.
opens conversations, and it's been worth it so far. I haven't decided that like even though I might be opening myself up to more mistakes, that yeah, I should change it. Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm like half jealous because like you don't have a dead name that like
Mm-hmm.
guts you every time you hear it. Like, oh, you like took your name and you made it yours. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Cause like I wish I had that a little bit. Cause like I'm what 8 years into my transition and I still can't hear my dead name without wanting to die. Like I kind of wish that sometimes I just took that name and made it what I feel like it could be now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I definitely like, I'm open in talking about Clarabelle, but certainly, I mean, that would be like the closest equivalent would be like, oh,
Right.
I really hate that.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, my dad was the last one to keep using it, even over like 25 years, right? Because I like came out
Mm.
or at 5 or 6, I was like, don't say Clarabelle. And I really had to have a conversation. And I'm like, Dad, can you just not say Clarabelle? Like, it almost felt like he was like, oh, I know the real you. And I was like, no, you really, it's like the total opposite, actually.
Yeah.
So I definitely empathize. Yeah, I don't know. And it's hard. It feels like pressure. That was the thing. It felt like pressure to be like, and now you will rename yourself. I'm like, oh my God. I don't know. That's like,
Yeah.
it's like a huge decision. So I understand. Yeah.
I want to dive deeper into that because you said you didn't feel like you needed to become a whole new person, which is a different perspective I've heard from other trans men because I feel like or just trans people in general because I think that is a common theme. Like we come out and we're like, okay, I need to start fresh. I need to get rid of this name. I need to get rid of these pronouns. I need to look completely different. I want to do it over again, which is completely valid. It's what I did. I wanted to just start over and become somebody else because I didn't like who I was before, I guess, in a way. But I think it's really cool that because like, I don't know, I guess I talked about it in my last episode a bit that like being trans and the way people talk about it, even people in the trans community talk about it in a very, very negative light sometimes that you have to hate yourself, you have to hate your past, you have to hate everything about you in order to be trans. And I just think that's a new positive perspective. If you want to elaborate a little bit on your thoughts about, not
Yeah,
changing your name and whatnot.
for sure. And obviously, like, I know that everybody experiences like different levels of dysphoria and has different amounts of like, friend, family, et cetera, like support or therapy in their lives. So, I certainly think if people want to have a completely fresh start, like, happy for them, definitely. Like, not saying that this is the best way to
Mhm.
do it. But yeah, for me, when I thought about being like, right, I figured out that I was trans in November of 2020. I was 29, about to turn 30, which is like a big number, I guess. And I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to erase everything and just be like, no, we're going to try to ignore all of that. We're going to say all of that sucked and we're just going to start over. And that just felt like the most depressing thing. That just felt like, oh my God, isn't that such a waste of those 30 years? Like,
Mm.
I don't know. I've always been like interested in like activism and I just couldn't sit with being like, no, but I'm gonna be this totally new person. It just felt so depressing to me. So yeah, I and especially after being like out as like a gay slash lesbian person for 17 years, yeah, I just couldn't imagine completely starting over and just like trying to blend in like that. It just felt like it went against everything. Yeah, I don't know, like all the morals that like I grew up with. I had my great grandmother was like a suffragette and worked for the National Women's Party, and like I heard all these stories about her growing up. Like at one point she like went to picket the Capitol, and the family she got arrested, and the family had to go get her, and they were like, please don't do that again. And she was like, I promise I won't. And the next week she ticketed the White House, and she was like, well, I didn't say the White House, right? So like I always have like grown up like hearing these stories, and I was like, I
Mm.
want to do something that like stands up for like the community that's important to me.
Right. So that I wanted to touch on that too more, because you did mention that you don't want to be, and I think I align with this too, and many other trans men that you don't. Obviously, we are men, and we want to pass as men and be treated as such, but I personally don't wish I was cis. I think I used to in my transition a lot. But now it's a new thing that I don't really wish to be cis anymore. I don't, whatever. But you said that you didn't like the idea of blending in with cis men and not being like radically visible, because I guess when you were out as lesbian, it was clear that like you stood for something and like whatnot. And I guess maybe by not changing your name and keeping it Clara, does that make you feel like you're not blending in with cis men and that you could still like be radically visible as a trans man?
Yeah, I guess a little bit with cis men for sure, but also even just in terms of if you're in a group of maybe just queer people in general or like lesbian identified people, and then it's just like, oh, you're just another dude. So even just like trying to feel like, oh, I'm more openly queer, and so other queer people can recognize that, right? Instead of like getting written off in the room and being like, well, we're not really interested in talking to that dude. Why is that
Mm.
dude trying to talk to us, right? I have heard of some people wearing like a trans flag necklace or something that you could pull out just at the right time, I guess,
Hmm.
if you really wanted.
I did that. I had like a dog tag that had the trans colors on it for the longest time, just so people would know,
Mhm.
so I could be different. I think it's important for trans people to do that if they want to, though, because you go from most of us obviously come from being proud L words, I guess, and like standing up for something and making a difference. And yes, we still do it as trans men, but we're hidden a lot easier because we look like your regular Joe Schmo cis man. And I guess I lost my train of thought. But do you feel like it's easier or harder for you to stand for something now?
Um, Interestingly, in some ways, I feel like I have more self confidence now. And I don't know if that is the testosterone or if that's just
Mm.
feeling more comfortable in my body or a little bit of both. And so, in some ways, Yeah, I actually do feel a little I do feel like I'm able to stand for something even a little bit easier than before because I don't mind being in the spotlight. You know, even this
Mm,
interview today, right? Like, I just finished law school, but prior to that, I was a reporter, and I was always the one doing the interviewing. You know, on the
mm.
other side, I'm like it's about the other person, and now like I am feeling like more comfortable like taking up space. And
That's
yeah, I think
interesting.
part
Yeah.
of that has to do with like owning like who I am and not trying to like tuck away this like masculinity that I was like, we're gonna ignore that. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, because I remember before I came out, I was excited to pass a cis and whatnot, but then the more I started to be compared to cis men and be seen as a cis man, I found it very odd, the feeling that I felt, because wanted to I wanted to be like them and look exactly like them, but I missed like being able to stand out, if that makes sense. Like being an average guy. No, thank you. I don't want to be average. Like, I want to stand out and I want to make a difference. And I feel that in every bone in my body that that's what I was meant to do and that's what I want to do. But I guess feeling like a cis man, I guess it feels like you can't because there's so many of them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't know. But do you? I remember actually. This is where I was going with that before. Um, you said something along the lines of not being able to relate to cis women anymore in public spaces. Do you feel that way?
Um, I guess it's more a little bit of a worry, right? I still, I've been on low dose gel and just had top surgery, so I haven't felt like I've always been the most like cis passing. So
Hmm.
we'll see how it continues. But it's definitely a worry. I went to Mount Holyoke College, like one of the Seven Sisters colleges, and so I have so many great friends from that space. And it kind of, I'm on like my class's reunion board and like I'm very active. And so it kind of freaks me out to be like, oh my God, am I going to go back to a reunion and people are going to be like, what does this do to me? Like, what is that? Like those relationships and like all the things that I learned at that institution and like really identifying as a feminist are so important to me. And so I guess the idea of being like, oh, am I in like opposition to that, now, which of course, like
Mm.
I'm not. But yeah, I just fear of like losing that insight or that connection to the community for sure.
Do you find yourself hanging out more with cis women than men? Like, do you feel more comfortable around women?
I definitely hang out with cis women, with cis men, with trans men for sure. I could use some more trans women friends in my life, but I don't necessarily. It's almost like I feel like I use them for different things. So like I find that we do different things, right? Like I'm gonna have like the deep, meaningful conversation. These are like terrible stereotypes, but I feel like I have
Right.
more of the emotional conversations like with some of the like cis women in my life. And
Hmm.
then with the cis men, somehow it always ends up being like sporting stuff. Like, are we like
Right.
playing frisbee golf? Are we going on a
Mm.
bike ride? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. Are we going to a brewery? And like, I enjoy both of those things. And there are certainly people, of course, who can like cross over and like, I don't know, interact differently. And of course, I've had like emotional conversations with men too. But it might even just be like how I'm boxing these people based on like what I was grew up with and what was culturally normal. Of like, well, this is what I do with this person.
Mm. That's true.
So yeah.
That's kind of how I see my friends as well. I think that's funny.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, because we were saying that we were talking on Instagram, and I related to it because I also feel like I can't relate to cis women the same way. Like I could, like with my close friends for sure. Like if they were talking about having a period or something, tampon, whatever. Like I could say something that like could be relatable because I lived a life like that for sure. But I feel like if I did, it not that they would make me feel that way. They're good people, but like from a societal standpoint, it would make me less of a man or not a real man if I were to be like, oh yeah, I remember when I got my period, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like I think it would be weird, and I hate that because I think a small part of me, small, does miss being able to relate to women on that kind of stuff, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mhm. I guess my follow up to that is that I have noticed, which is this is like a terrible habit I need to get out of. Sometimes when there's new cis women in my life who like don't know me prior, like my wife does agility competitions with our corgis, and it's a very female dominated sport. It's like obstacle courses, and I'll notice I'm on it. Sometimes I come off as like standoffish, and I'm like, oh, I'm not. I'm trying not to be like overly friendly because I'm like, then are they going to think about? Then are they going to realize like I'm the woman? Are they going to think about? Not that like I'm trying not to be out, but is that going to be at the top of their mind? And I'm like, no, I'm being like I should not just like not be friendly because I get dysphoric or socially dysphoric or something.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, it's weird how it all gets stumbled up into like how your dynamics with people. Yeah.
I think that's a struggle for a lot of trans men, because typically we're more, and I'm not outgoing, but just more friendly, I guess, than cis men, and I'm always so fucking aware of it when I meet new people too. Like I'm always like, "Hey, like how are you?" And then I'm like, "Oh my god, Cody, tone it down. Okay, relax, act cool. You're gonna out yourself." But like they don't notice, like nobody else thinks like that besides us, which is so fun.
Sure, you're going to be hypercritical, like your own biggest critic.
Yeah. To get into our other topic for the day, we were talking a little bit prior about how I think it started because I started asking you about, testosterone stuff, and you said you were on a lower dose, right? And I wanted to wait till
Mm-hmm.
now to ask you why you chose to be on a lower dose.
Yeah, sure. So I tend to be a little bit more of a risk avoidant person in general, right? And I came out and then I spent the first year socially transitioning, which for me just meant like, okay, I've come to this conclusion that like I'm not that little girl, right? I did all these things to try to be like, look, I'm socially acceptable, and then I was like, okay, there just needs to be some sort of radical shift happening, and so I spent that first year like going to support groups on Zoom because it was COVID, and like reading books and like listening to YouTube or podcasts, or just like trying to hear all these different people's experiences and being like, is this me? I think this is me. So I was really interested in having top surgery because I realized that was like a large part of my dysphoria. And when I wasn't going to be able to have it because I was in law school and I had like some shoulder issues going on, and I was just like, okay, do I want to try this? Do I want to try testosterone? But it's like it's one of those things where you're like, okay, well, if I'm reading about it all the time, I probably want to try it, right? Like you're like, those people don't do this. But it's like everything is kind of, the research is so new, and you're like, who do I trust? And it's like, oh, you want to go to like a trans affirming provider, and you're like, oh my god, if I lived anywhere else, if I lived anywhere in the world, and I'm like, I have a knee issue, it'd be like, well, here's what we do about your knee. But it's like there's so many different like ways to think about like transition. There wasn't like one obvious medical path. And so I wanted to go for like a slower approach. So that was like one thing. And then I also, because I was still going to have a chest and I felt like I had a larger chest, I felt unsafe about having a potentially visible chest and then like potentially starting to have these changes and maybe looking like, I don't know, more than a bush lesbian at that point, like really being like, what is happening with this person? I mean, for years I was already like struggling in the bathroom. I'd go into the women's room and I'd see some grandmother like grab her daughter's hand and run out, and I'd be like, well, that was weird. And then later I'd be like, oh, I didn't realize. So yeah, and because of my shoulder injury, I like wasn't able to bind at all. So
Oh shit!
I
didn't think about
yeah,
that
I
sucks.
just yeah, and part of the thing that I like nuts thing is that like I realized I wasn't expanding my rib cage when I was breathing. Like my dysphoria had led me to like only breathe with my neck or my stomach, like just like not really, and so that's really bad for you.
Yeah, dude.
I had to go to like special breathing PT.
Oh my god, people don't get what we have to go through.
If anybody's looking, it's called the Postural Restoration Institute. They really helped me expand, and now it's so much better. So, but yeah, so I was worried from a safety aspect. My wife was in talks to take this job as a professor at the University of Wisconsin. And so far I've had an overall good experience. I had one person, yell faggot at me on the street, and I wanted to be like, that's gender affirming.
Dead ass.
I was wearing like a rainbow tank top.
That's bad funny.
Yeah, he
Thank
was
you.
like driving, so I'm like, you literally took the effort to slow down the car, roll down your window, and yell at me, like, um.
Dead ass.
So yeah, my wife was in talks to take this job at Wisconsin, and I was like, I'm moving to a new area potentially, because I mean, she applied for this job like so far out, and yeah, I just overall decided to go for the slower approach, just because I was nervous about safety. Yeah.
Mm. So you said that you, I guess, to re-say what you already said, that you um, were nervous about passing, I guess, because you were on testosterone but didn't have top surgery yet. I guess you were worried about how, I guess, strangers would see you and if you
Yeah.
felt unsafe in public
Hmm.
places. That's a huge
Definitely.
topic. I think that's definitely frustrating. Did that ever frustrate the shit out of you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where just like you have to keep living your life. I mean, I've been in therapy pretty regularly since 2015, so highly recommend everybody have like an outlet. And I go to a trans support group on Zoom like 2 times a month for people 30 years and up. So that's been really great. But it's just kind of like survival where you're just like, this is my situation now, and it just is what it is. And
Hmm.
just been so much about the long term. Like, you know what? I'm going to get that law degree. We're going to keep doing testosterone, but we're going to do it slowly. Like, I'm going to have top surgery, but, I mean, I had top surgery 16 months after I first made the call, right? Because 10 months to the consult, 6 months to the surgery. So it's just been about long term gratification, which has been
Mm.
really hard. But like, I
Yeah.
made it. That's like, I can't even believe that it happened still. But like, I made it here. It's here. Finished the degree, had top surgery. We're moving forward. So
Hell
I,
yeah,
I
dude.
am thinking about maybe raising my dose sometime at the end of the year. We'll see. Yeah.
Nice, nice. I think, you call yourself risk avoidant, which is valid. I know a lot of people who are, and there's no one way to transition either. Like, no matter what pace you go at, it doesn't mean you're not trans enough, which we hate that argument. But have you ever felt that way? Has anybody ever made you feel that way? Because you take a little bit of a different route than other trans guys.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the not feeling trans enough kind of goes back to the trans time concept for me, because you have all these things where you're like, I'm not sure, I'm gonna maybe not, I don't know, gonna push that down. And then it was that year that I spent kind of in the social transition phase where I like really made an effort to go to support groups, and then those like people I knew in college where I'm like, I'm fascinated with that human being. I'm like, can we have a phone call? Like anybody I knew who had trans friend, I was like, can I talk to you? Like I was like, I want to hear about your life, right? And like one of the themes that like blew me away was I would go to these support groups, and not always trans math. Sometimes it would be like non-binary, trans women, etc. And there was this really shared experience of not feeling trans enough, and I like couldn't believe this, because I thought, from the media, it's like everybody's born in the wrong body, new forever. That was definitely my path. I was going to commit suicide if that didn't happen, and that was not my experience at all. Like I was just like, this
Hmm.
kind of sucks. But now I have more information about myself. I didn't think anything like that. So yeah,
Mm.
I was really shocked, and I think so much of that is a product of our culture and telling us that like this isn't real, this doesn't exist. You can't do this. I mean, I remember coming out to my mom. One of her reactions was like, "But everybody likes how you are," and I was like, "What? Like, what is that? Like, what is that? Like, I don't even know what to say to that. Like, that's cool. Okay."
But I don't,
Um,
mom.
yeah. So yeah, I couldn't believe how many people I met. So in this odd sort of twisted way, meeting all these other people who were asking this "Am I trans enough?" question was affirming, because I was like, everybody has a question. Actually, this is
Yeah.
very trans. It is very trans to ask, are you trans enough? So yeah.
Wow. It's cool to see it in that light because, like, it's like, I don't know. Sometimes being trans, like, and everybody who is trans, there's like a clique sense. Like,
Mm.
you have your trans people who obviously shit on other trans people and make it harder for other trans people. But sometimes I feel like other trans people make you feel like you're not trans enough, not even the outside world. Because I feel like, especially in trans men, from what I've seen, there is kind of like a race to the finish line. Who can change their name first? Who can change their gender marker first? Who can get top surgery first? Who can start like? And the more you do, the more trans you are, and the more you deserve to be congratulated and welcomed and shit. Do you have you ever felt like it was a competition between other trans people?
Um, so I haven't felt like I've at least like introduced like friendships into my life where I've felt like people have kind of had that toxic energy or like made me feel insecure like that. I have noticed more things like internally where I'm like, oh, maybe I'm meeting up with this trans person for the first time tomorrow. Like maybe I'll hold off on shaving, right? You know, like because I'm like, I want to feel really valid right now, right? Like, but I haven't felt like there's anybody who's made me feel that way,
Mm,
in
that's
particular.
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
You know a good amount of trans people, I feel like,
Because I
right?
spent that year trying to get to know everybody.
It's like just for everybody listening, you and I have been DMing for quite a while now since I had Aiden and Taylor on because you introduced me to Aiden, which again, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. But ever since then, you DM me like, hey, like here's another trans person who could be on. Here's another one you could talk to, or did you hear about this? And I'm like, dude, how do you know all these people?
Yeah, I think for me, finding community like really helped me feel solid in my identity. So I think I'm an extrovert. Even like both my siblings, like my sister plans events for a living and is like super social. Um, my dad's are all, you know, I used to be a reporter. My dad's a reporter. You know, I mean, he says like his business is his Rolodex, like it's his contact, right? Like that's how he has his job. That's what makes him valuable. But in addition to it, like feeling like a business transaction, like I really just enjoy people. Yeah, so I enjoy connecting with the community, like for
That's
sure.
cool. That's cool. It's refreshing because most of my guests, which is really sad, including like me before I started this podcast, had like my guests didn't don't usually have any other trans people in their life, and I didn't either. And I think I've said it many times, but it's definitely very very important in somebody's transition to have other people who have shared the same struggles. So I'm happy to hear that.
Absolutely. And I really think you're doing a service for the community too, like by having this podcast, like doing the Discord, I reached out because I was like, this is so cool what this guy's doing. Like, yeah,
Thank you, bro. That warms my heart. I appreciate that. I when people say shit like that to me, it makes every hate comment because I'm starting to get very up here about all the hate comments and shit that I get. So every time I hear that, that makes all of this very worth it. So I appreciate you saying that. Um, but I wanted to get into something that I've talked about like a fair amount on each episode, but never really dove into is the safety for trans people. And I chose this as a topic because you, the way you've talked about how you've gone about certain things in your transition, like changing your name. Did you mention to me that you didn't change your gender marker, or did I
I have
make that up?
not. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, that's certainly, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, originally I think it sort of started out practical, where I was like trying to learn more about the community, and I was busy with law school, and as I was getting to know more people, I kept hearing all these like different stories. So somebody was like, "Oh, I changed my gender marker," and then my insurance was like, "Well, you have an M. We don't cover gynecological care," and I was like, "Oh, really?" Like I was like, wow. I mean, of course, that sounds like a lawsuit. You'd hope you could bill it as other things. Like I've heard somebody was like, okay, if you ever ran into that, you could try to convince your doctor to go see a gynecologist and say it's like an anal pap smear, and they can bill it that way. And so to try
Wow.
to, but it's like so many different circles. So yeah, some of the stuff like that was stressing me out. I've talked to people who have traveled internationally, and then felt like the second they changed their gender marker, like regardless of passing or not, you know, I don't know how all these international databases like work when you enter another country with security, but there's certainly going to be something there that's like this person has made a change of some sort, and
Mm-hmm.
it took them forever to go through customs, or people like not taking jobs. Like I know somebody who was offered some work in Poland and said no because he was nervous about it. So all these different reasons, or even I don't think I'm going to jail ever, but as somebody who's like going to be working in the law, it's something I think about. I don't know that I want to be in a men's prison, and it certainly depends where you are. I'm sure more conservative states would just be like, you were born with an F, you get an F, you're going there. But in some places, they might send you a men's prison, and
It's
um,
terrifying.
you
That is
know,
absolutely terrifying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, to each their own. Some people might find that very affirming. Great, good for you. But
I mean, like, I do a little bit, but then I really think about it. I'm like, oh my god, like I would be murdered. Like I don't know if I want to be in a male prison. Ugh,
yeah,
that
and
sounds terrifying.
my mom's father came over from Germany at 14. He escaped from the Holocaust. Like I have relatives that are like all over the world, like Australia, Argentina, the U.S., Israel, England. There's actually one in Sweden, but she doesn't. I have no relatives left there because we think that she was a lesbian, didn't have kids. I grew up with this mentality of like trying to protect yourself and safety being like a big priority. And so, even in terms of thinking about like doing like 23andMe just to see your DNA, my mom was like, you don't want to put yourself in a database, like of, here's a list of Jews, and I was like, oh, I don't know that I want to be on some government database of somebody who's like, here's a list of all the people that have swapped gender markers, and there's been, so much turmoil politically and, freakouts about war, since I mean there always is, but like it's been intense, and that's part of
Right.
why I decided to go to law school.
Mm.
And so I just have felt like for my personal safety so far, it has felt like a better choice to not change my gender marker.
Do you
Yeah.
have any plans at all? Like, do you want to in the future or no?
As of right now, I'm not interested in changing my gender marker. How this might be an interesting anecdote, like how I've navigated TSA so far is that when I go to fly, I haven't flown international recently, but when I've flown domestic, I will typically wear a mask, and I can only really grow a goatee anyway. So then, like, they only ask you to like pull down your mask when you show your ID. So I just pull it down to here, so they don't see the facial hair. So it's just like, yep. And somebody had once suggested if you needed to be like passing, you should wear some dangly earrings. You'd be like a kooky artsy lady with a short haircut. So I show up to the airport at TSA. I borrow like my wife's earrings. I got my mask on. I go right through security, and the second I'm putting my shoes back on, the other side I'm taking them out and taking the mask off, and then that's it. So that's what I've done. Um,
Oh my god.
yeah, so I
That's
don't
really
know if at
funny.
some point that might not
But
work, but yeah,
but like also wild that you have to do that too, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Jesus. Does that like make you dysphoric when you do that at all or no?
Yes, but I just feel like it's worth it. Like it's just like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. Like okay, I'm checking my bag. I'm waiting in the TSA line. I mean,
Mm.
there was one time when some guy was like, nice earpiece, and then I turned like he thought it was like a stud, and I turned my head, and he was like, oh, sorry, So I'm like, oh fuck, I don't know how much longer I can do this. So I just feel like yeah, yes, it does make me feel dysphoric, but I just know it's so temporary, and it's honestly kind of, I'm just like, well, this is kind of a funny situation. So yeah.
Hey, that's a glass half full kind of perspective on it. So I love that. Do you do you have any other like safety precautions that you use as a trans person in public places?
I did. So like I had so many bad experiences with TSA. That's sort of the background of this too. Like somebody who I cut my hair off in 2010 and never went back. Have had short hair since then. Like I had one time. I knew that they did the body. Some of the airports still do body scans. They started to phase that out a little bit. If you're flying through Newark now, not all the terminals have them, so that's
Mm.
nice. But I had some guy pat me down, and in my mind, I'm just like, well, why would they separate these like professionals that are supposed to be here for TSA by gender? Like, of course, a man should be able to search anyone because you're supposed to be a professional, right? So it never even occurred to me that this is a man thinking of a man patting me down. And he's like, "Oh,
Mm.
sir, are you wearing like a brace?" And I was like, "I'm a woman, and this is my bra, right?" And
Oh.
so to avoid that, I haven't flown since I had top surgery because I just had it, but I might even like wear like a pink shirt to the airport, or even just be like take the bra strap out and just have it like up here. I just didn't want to have the confrontational conversation. I just wanted to get through the body scanner and then just like put my hoodie on, take my earrings out, whatever. So it really was just like to try to avoid the confrontation discussion with TSA. So
Dude, that is my worst
mhm.
nightmare. Flying, like traveling as a trans person can be terrifying. Like Actually, I have a link here. I almost forgot about from folks. Folks made an article about its tips flying while trans, and I'm gonna link it in the description below because I think it's really important. They talk about what to do with your legal name change and gender markers if you don't have those switched or changed when flying. What else they got in here? They got how to get through TSA pre-checks, going through airport security, metal detectors, and body scanners. Especially if you're a trans guy who's packing, maybe don't pack when you're going through metal detectors and stuff at the airport. I feel like that's a no go, and especially for trans women too. It's just the shit that we have to go through, man. I hate it, and not a lot of people like because I've met some trans guys who are afraid to fly. Especially with like packing and stuff, and be like, well, I have to wear it. I'm not gonna not wear it. Like, and they get trapped there and they have to get pat down and stuff and trans women with tucking and stuff it's and then even carrying your testosterone and stuff you can get questioned for the hormones that you're bringing on with you. I mean, I'm not folks can say it all a lot better than me, so maybe future Max, if you want to make this article go fly by me right now while I'm talking, that would be great. But they lay it all out for you if you because I'm flying soon. I'm going on vacation soon, and I'm worried about going through. I always bring my name change papers and stuff. And I remember
That's a good
the
idea.
the first time I went on a cruise, and I don't think my passport matched my ID yet or anything. And also, my parents are divorced. Me and my sister have different dads. So when my family goes on vacation, we all have different last names. And I was not who I was on my passport. And they were like, "Who are you? Whose kid are you?" I was a minor. Like, I had to bring a note from my dad. I had to call my dad. He had to talk to TSA for me because I wasn't flying with him. I was just with my mom. They and I was a kid. Like I was a kid. Like, ugh. They don't care. They really don't care. And it's really sad. But definitely give that article a glance if you are a trans person who is about to travel. Because it's scary out there, man. And people don't realize that we have to think about these things.
I do have one quick tip for flying with testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just want to acknowledge that sucks that was your experience. Um, but when I fly, right, I got the needle, syringe, whatever, testosterone. There's normally like on the box, at least for me, or when you pick up something from the pharmacy, sometimes there'll be like a sticky tab, right, like a sticker that might say like your name, the pharmacy, the doctor, the amount. And that's like the only thing that says like my name and testosterone on it. And I just rip it off the box and just put it with all the supplies. So if any TSA person has to open it, look, there's my name with the medication name right there. It doesn't have to go there. It's just a piece of paper, but like whatever.
Yeah,
So
dude.
just in case. So
Oh,
it's an idea.
that is an idea. I have to bring my hormones with me because I'm going away in November. That's a good idea. I'll probably do that as well. Um, I want to talk about a little bit some other maybe safety tips for trans folks who also who also consider themselves risk avoidant, who are just anxious in general about transitioning and just the safety hazards that come with being trans. Um, and which brings me to a question for you: do you use public restrooms at all?
I
No.
do use public restrooms. Um, yeah, since I only just had Well, okay, so I only just had top surgery, so now I'm trying to exclusively use all gender or men's rooms. But prior, it kind of felt like, have I shaved my face or not? Like it was like I felt like it was more dicey, or like how bulky are my clothes right now?
Mm.
I haven't run into a public restroom issue. I have not tried an STP. I have only gone for a stall. But I certainly have had things where I've been like, I know that bathroom only has two stalls, so I'm going to wait until two people come out of that room because I just saw two people go in. Or like,
Mm.
I've definitely like done the turning around. Maybe I'll go to the one down the hall,
Dude,
kind of a thing.
people who fucking use STPs, more power to you. In public restrooms, I mean, like, couldn't be me. I don't know how y'all do it. That's scary. I'll take a stall. Thank you very much. Um, but yeah, I think, some safety tips would definitely be always have a bathroom buddy.
Mm.
Um, I think I always liked the idea of somebody standing outside of the bathroom door, not letting anybody else in, because when I'm also pee shy, okay? So like no matter what, like if I'm home and there's like people in my apartment, like I have to play a TikTok or something while I'm peeing, because if you hear me pee, I'm gonna freak out. So like if other people are walking into the bathroom, I'm just there. I'm just waiting for them to leave because I cannot be in front of other people. I am stage fright. But so that's also a thing. Is why I don't really use public restrooms. But I think I would kill for like a bodyguard that could just like stand outside and make sure nobody comes in. Um, but yeah, if you have a bathroom buddy, go ahead.
Definitely bathroom buddy for sure. Yeah, it's great if there's a line. And yeah, I mean back in the day, right? I mean, if I was trying to use the women's, I'd have like a friend or a family member like talk to me, and then it'd be like all these other female people would have to be like, this person is being affirmed. This should be in this line, but this other clearly female person.
Mm.
Um, yeah. Oh, there's something else I was gonna say. Oh, in terms of like being pee shy, I've been trying. This is like a ridiculous backwards thing, but like I've been trying to convince myself that it's more masculine to not be pee shy. I'm like, these men don't care. They're all peeing next to each other. I'm like, if I pee the loudest, that is actually the most masculine thing I can do.
To show dominance, yeah.
Right, because that's like I do feel like that's like a culture thing, like women's bathroom culture. It's supposed to be like the quietest, the most
Yeah.
dainty, the most private.
It's just men are out here taking dumps next to each other. Like I can't. Not for me.
There was a guy I used to work with at a magazine, like only I was reporting, and sometimes he would bring a copy of the news, like maybe this week's paper, to the bathroom with him. And it's like, you know exactly what you're doing with that. Like, and like me and my like coworkers, we'd have like AIM or whatever, and we'd text and be like, Jeff brought a newspaper to the bathroom again. You
Dude,
know what that means?
that's the most like power stance alpha male type shit I've ever heard in my life. Like everyone needs to know I'm going to take a shit right now. Everyone has to know.
Yeah.
I'm still like to my girlfriend, like I don't poop. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do that. That's bad funny. Uh Also, I have written down here that I almost forgot as another tip. Like I talked about it in past episodes a couple times, how like, but only when it comes to like a social media standpoint, like, is it wrong for a person with a social media platform to uh, be stealth and not be a voice for the trans community? And I think that same kind of concept can come into play. Like, say you're out in public and transphobia is happening in a somewhat violent way to somebody else. I think every bone in my body would want to be like stand up for that person, and I probably would. But if I didn't, or if somebody else didn't, I don't think that makes them a coward in any sense. I feel like a lot of people think you're part of the trans community, you have to stand up for everything trans all the time and be a voice all the time. And like, I just want to say that you don't have to be a hero if you are in danger. Like, if you think you're going to get hurt in a public place for standing up for being trans, stay quiet and get out of there. Don't be a hero, because it's not worth it. Your safety is not worth it. Because even for me, I think I would have to tell myself, I'm always like, I could take them. Like, bitch, sit down. No, you can't. Like, get out of there. What are you talking about? So I think that's an important tip, that you don't have to be a hero. And if you're not a hero, if you don't stick up for yourself for being trans, if you're not a voice, it does not make you a coward. Is all I want
I
to say.
100% yeah back you up on that and agree definitely. Like everybody has different skills that they bring to the world, and activism doesn't have to be for everybody at all times. Who knows what's going on in your back, in somebody's background, their personal life, their
Mhm.
financial situation. If you're just trying to get by, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does not make you a coward. I feel like a lot of people think that they have to be a voice for the trans community. Like when you have a platform on social media and you're like not talking about it and like not helping trans youth, maybe that's a little different. But like when it comes to your safety, things are different. Um,
Mhm.
but and lastly, like pretty clearly, maybe don't, especially trans women, like don't walk home alone at night because you never know. Even if you're like somebody who's like, oh, I could take them, like, oh, I'll be fine. You never know, and it's not worth the risk. The whole point of all of this is for us to be safe. We got to be safe. That's all.
Yeah. It was really through like starting to date my now wife that I really kind of realized the like walking home alone at night. Like as somebody, I was always like masculine presenting after I cut off my hair in 2010, and like I couldn't believe how unsafe my wife felt all the time, like walking around Philadelphia. And I was like, and I wasn't even identifying as a man at that point, or didn't have like major facial hair, but I just was like, oh my god. And then I would be like, are you sure? And then I'd go out with her in public, and we'd like be on the subway platform in Philadelphia, and like some men would like leer at her or lean into her or like say weird shit. Like I just was like, oh my god, this is a totally different lived experience than what I've experienced.
Oh,
Yeah,
completely different.
I've certainly fallen safe too, but it's definitely like I really understand where she's coming from.
Oh, it's disgusting. And like sometimes you don't see it unless like you see it from another man's perspective, I guess. Like
Hmm.
I don't think I noticed before I was trans how many men, gross, old, stinky men, look at my friends, my female friends in
Mm,
public. And when I, came out as trans and started identifying as male and like being comfortable in my own skin, I actually like took a look around when we were in public and realized all these creepy men staring at my friends. And I'll side eye them like, don't fucking look at her, like thinking I'm some tough guy, but like, oh, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. Ugh. Bleh. It's like, why can't we just like, I don't know, be respectful? Who would have thought?
mhm.
But for our last little topic today, I said it earlier that a somebody in the Discord server, Discord plug, join it. It'll be in the description below. Um, Gave me an idea. His name is Eli. We love you, Eli. The idea to kind of have a little segment called "Things That Should Have Made Me Realize I Was Trans but Didn't." So I had everybody in the Discord server send some stories from their childhood when they should have realized they were trans and it just never clicked in anybody's head. And after I'm done reading mine, you did share some already, but after I'm done reading these, if you want to share yours, be my guest. But we have a lot, a good amount, and it starts with Miles. Miles said, "I used to only play as boy characters because they were cooler, and then when I was online as a kid, I would pretend to be a boy. I did that. I 100%
Same.
did that. I I'd be on Club Penguin, like my penguin's name was like Danny 60218. Like none of my friends questioned me. Thanks, guys. Next one's from Jack. There are so many little things like wishing my voice was deeper, that I was hairier, that I was more, that I had more muscle. As a little girl, I'd imagined myself as a female character that looked 100% male, and I convinced myself it was because boy bodies are cooler. I like that one because like you still like would picture yourself as a female character, but just looked that one that just looked male.
Mhm.
Next one's from Eli. I used to wear basketball shorts under my pants to be like boxers and then sag my pants so people could see them. Or when my brother started growing a beard, wondering when I was going to grow one too. That's so wholesome. I love that.
Mhm.
I would wear boxers all the time and sag my pants too. Be in my room like pretending I was like some rapper. Like little girls like don't do that, guys. I feel like I should have known. And then the next one is from Sam. Sam, I think, is a trans woman. Yes, her pronouns are she, her. She says, constantly thinking, wow, lesbians are so cool. Haha, could never be me though. That's like what we were saying before. How like
Mhm.
couldn't I couldn't say the word lesbian. I was gay. I was 100% gay. Miles again. I would accidentally use my brother's body wash when we shared a bathroom as a kid. And then before I knew what binding was or how to do it safely, I would use ace bandages on my chest to make it flat. Miles. Bad Miles. No, I mean, like, you got to do what you got to do. I don't blame you, but it's dangerous. I hope you're breathing and your lungs are okay, mate. Then Bailey said, anytime I'd play with my friends or my sister, I'd always be the male character. Like if we would play family or house, I'd always be the husband, the brother, the
Yep.
son, never the female character. Same with video games and toys. I don't know why no one questioned it. Dude, playing house, always the son, always the brother, always the dad. Someone tried to make me the mom. Mm-mm. I said, mm-mm. That's not how we play, actually. Robin, I wanted to draw on a beard for a carnival. I was hiding my chest with long hair before I bought my binder. I wanted to be like gay boys, and I wanted my mom to promise me that I don't have to ever wear a dress again when I was 6. Ugh, felt that one in my bones. I felt that. Oh, and then Miles says, little TMI, but I would try standing to pee, but it never worked until I got an STP. That takes commitment. And then everyone started talking about how they were a pirate for Halloween a lot, and how being a pirate for Halloween as a trans man is a canon event, which I thought was really funny because I was definitely a pirate like 5 years in a row.
Wow.
And then Miles again. I was obsessed with Danny Phantom. Clay, Mulan was and still is my favorite Disney princess. Solid. Me too. Uh,
Agreed.
Mason, I was absolutely obsessed with Mulan and Danny Phantom. I also got mad when my elementary teachers would say they needed strong boys to carry stuff and wouldn't let me help them. Yo, me too. Me too. I'd be like, why? I'm a strong little dude. Why can't I help you? What the fuck?
Let's move all these chairs. Okay, I can do this myself.
Deadass. Let's see. Oh, Max. When I was in preschool, I would try to sit backwards on the toilet seat to use the restroom like a boy.
Backwards.
Backwards, bro.
Confusion
Oh.
on what people do.
I love you, Max. I took scissors and cut my hair off at 3, and when my mom asked me why, I said I want to look like a boy. That's the most like you should have realized, or somebody should have realized. Tony, even though I didn't come out as trans until I was 24, I watched so many trans guys on YouTube, testosterone updates, coming out stories, top surgery recoveries, and all. And I thought, wow, I'm such a good ally. Or I wish I could do that. Well, back to being a girl, I guess. Dude, that was me with like being gay and stuff. I'm like, yes, gay rights. I'm not gay though. You guys go. True ally. And then more about how pirates being a pirate for Halloween is a canon event. And then Tabby Cat, who is a trans woman, said, freshman year homecoming. My friend was complaining about wearing heels. I knew she had the same foot size as I did. I told her they're no big deal. She dared me to try them on. I did, and wore them longer than the joke was funny. She literally had to ask for them back, but I can't be trans, right? That's not funny. I remember always stealing like my guy friends' hats and like t-shirts and stuff, and like making it seem like it was a joke when it like clearly wasn't. I was having way too much fun like dressing up as a boy. um and then Miles again. When I was a kid, I tried to shave my face like how I saw my older brother think like I saw how my older brother did it, thinking girls got facial hair, and was very upset when I was told I wouldn't get any. That's like low-key really sad. Anthony, my mom also used to consistently yell at me for manspreading, especially on the rare occasions I allowed a skirt or dress on my body. She said it's not ladylike, and I would roll my eyes and tell her I'm not a lady. Yep, teenage me, even though you didn't know, you were so right.
I hated that. Oh, across your legs. I used to get that all the time. Then I started
Oh,
wearing the shorts underneath, and I was like, "Well, now
you can't
what?"
do anything now.
Yeah.
Anthony, the fact that you were like, I'm not a lady, I feel like you should have known. uh, and then I think we got a couple more. Um, Max. So ever since I cut my hair short about 3 years ago, when I would go to the grocery store, I wasn't aware I was trans for a hot sec. I would often get called sir, or they would use he, him pronouns, and I would be so stoked. I would call my friends and be like, and joke about it and be like, LOL, so funny. You wouldn't believe it. Wouldn't believe this person thought I was a guy. Ha ha ha. Literally the biggest smile on my face. I was totally clueless though, completely unaware, like, why do I get so happy when people think I'm a guy? And then one day I was like, hold up, why does this make me so happy? Dude, I remember I think I've told the story before. I was getting on a line to go down a water slide, and was like 6 or something, and I had still very long hair, but like I was in like boys swim shorts and like a swim shirt. And this guy goes, loving the hair, little dude. And I was like, thanks. Stupid. And like, I should have known. It made me so happy. Is that it? I think that might be it. Oh, it's just a lot of from Midnight Thoughts. It's just a lot of smaller stuff when I was younger, like when I had convinced myself I was just a tomboy, and when I would refuse to hang out with girls because playing with guys was much cooler and I felt more comfortable. That's kind of like what you said earlier in the episode. Robin, I wanted to play with the boys, but nobody let me do that. Thomas, I had a suit jacket and a waistcoat in my locker in school, and I changed into them as soon as I got there. That's wild. That's commitment, bro. Props to you.
Yeah.
Robin, I think this is the last one. Robin, I know somebody who is trans, and I was jealous of him and that he could transition, and I couldn't because I was like, well, I'm not even trans. Yeah, no, me too. Felt that one. I think we both related on that. Where like somebody was trans and was just we were just weirdly obsessed with them for some odd reason. I love those. Thank you guys so much for sharing that with me. I thought all of that was very wholesome. Keep them coming if you guys like hearing all those. I'll do that every week for a different category if you want. So just let me know. But those were very wholesome. So thank you for sharing them. And I think you shared yours. Did you have another one?
The other thing that really comes to mind is somebody in the third grade thought they were like teasing me, and they decided that my nickname was going to be Larry. And then that was my nickname from the third grade through the ninth grade. So for like a bunch of years, I was using a male name. Like I would call people's house and I'd be like, is so and so there to like chat or have a play date? And they'd be like, who's calling? And I'd be like, you can say it's Larry. Just like, well, not everybody does that.
And did that like make you like happy? Like, did you get euphoria from that?
Yeah, I think I think originally he was like, you're Larry the cow. And I was like, what is that? But I was like, I'm going to own this. Look, I'm so mature. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm Larry. Your words bounce off me, sticks and stones. Like,
Period.
but really it was like gender euphoria
Yeah.
or, I had no idea.
Sticks and
Yeah.
stones, man. Sticks and stones. That's been funny. Before we go, which I found this really interesting about you. You guys know I always do trans song of the week now, and when I asked you if you had a song that helped you through your transition at all, you said no. But I have something else, so I renamed it for this episode, Trans Art of the Week. So if you want to share whatever you brought, you can.
Yeah, sure, sure. So yeah, when I was first asked this question, I was kind of thinking back, and a lot of times when I think about music, sometimes songs can be direct with lyrics, but sometimes they're like more of a metaphor. And I just felt like when I came out, when I spent that first year like socially transitioning, I was like, I needed things to be really direct. I needed this to be like exclusively trans. I didn't need this to be like, I don't know, what's it, The Killer? I don't know, whatever. Different songs about like, I felt this way, or maybe it was, I was like, I want to know about trans culture. So when I first took that gender studies class, and we learned about, oh my God, we literally talked about Buck Angel, like in my class, right?
Oh
Like,
God.
and he was only known for porn at that point, because this was like 2009. He wasn't
Oh
even like an
yeah.
activist or anything. I mean, maybe, I'm sure he was trying, right? Like, I don't know, like his resume, but like, that's at least my understanding is that his, was known at that point. So, in addition to talking about Buck Angel in class, we also talked about this magazine called Original Plumbing. And this is a copy, it's like their anthology. So it was a magazine that was in print for from 2009 to 2019. So for 10 years, it was like a quarterly put together by two trans guys, Amos Mack and Rocco Coyotes. And the name Original Plumbing was supposed to be a reference to genitals, right? Like that things might change with testosterone or, whatever, somebody pursues bottom surgery. And that always stuck out in my mind of being like, I remember like Googling Original Plumbing and being like, oh, really wishing I could read it, but I didn't want to purchase the magazine, right? Because I was like, well, that would maybe mean that I was So I was just like fascinated by it from afar. And then like when I finally came out, like, the name, I was like, I'm buying a copy. I was like, the Original Plumbing still exists. Like I always wanted. And I was like, oh no, it's not. They're not publishing anymore. But yeah, they put together this like best of magazine articles, Feminist Press published. And you can still go on their website and buy some of the older magazines. But it just was really fun to kind of see, it's specifically trans mass culture, like portrayed in what this sounds so cheesy, like in like a cool way. Because before it felt like, I don't know, like when I was in college from 2008 to 2012, it was like you only ever saw it on the news. It still felt like very like extreme, like not, mainstream. And to just be like, oh, here's a Q&A. Here's some people that like to play sports. Here's some people in their like profession. It's just like, these are normal people. They exist. This is what they do. This is how they spend their time. And I just was like, that was just so great. Yeah, I was so happy to get a copy of Original Plumbing, the best 10 years of trans male culture. So I highly recommend checking that out because it really helped, like, I don't know, normalize it for me. It was just really great. So, yeah.
Nice. I appreciate you sharing that with me and everybody else, because I think that is like that's the breakthrough moment for anybody who doesn't understand transness, is just realizing that we're not, especially for trans men too, because we don't have we have close to little representation. So when people realize that we are just normal people and not like weird confused lesbians who were like weirdly sex driven or some shit, like I think I think that's the moment where transphobia starts to fade away, when you realize we're not doing that. We're just normal fucking people. So that's really cool. You said that they don't make them anymore, or they don't.
Yeah, the authors have like focused on other things after 10 years. But you can still go on their website. You can purchase the like best of book, and you can purchase old issues. They have a sale right now. A couple of the issues are like $5. So yeah, I highly recommend checking it out.
I will put the description to that I will put the link in the description below for that. Thank you again for sharing that with us. What are your handles on social media so people can follow you?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram. It's just my name, at Clara Lefton. So CLARALEF as in Frank, TON, at Clara Lefton on Instagram.
Sweet. And make sure you follow me at HRT Podcast on TikTok and Instagram. I post on there every single day. Follow me or subscribe to me on Patreon. I want to start making merch soon, and I can't do that if you don't subscribe to me on Patreon. So make sure you do that and join the Discord. Clara is in the Discord. He can vouch. It's a fun place to be. I promise you won't regret it. If you haven't already, why? I don't understand. It's free. You have no excuse. Just join it. And that is about it. I drop videos on here every Tuesday. And that's it, guys. Clara, thank you so much for being on today. You were great. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's about it, guys. I will see you next week. Bye.